Take one, Mark.
Hello there. Can everyone hear me? Welcome to Cornerstone Convergence. I'm Brandon. Adam's working on a few things backstage, well, his PowerPoint, and he allowed me to come up and say a few things. Why me? Why me? Because I am the future. It's true. Gen Z, baby. I could be working for you one day. Heck, you see this suit? You could be working for me. So you'll have to pay attention. Now, I know you guys have traveled from far away. So welcome. You're here to learn, network, and make some new friends. You want to know the future. That's why you're here, isn't it? You want to know the answers. You want to know what's coming. You're in luck. We're here to talk about skills, work, and a whole bunch of other things I don't understand yet. So make sure you go to all the keynotes and all the sessions. And I heard the concert was going to be amazing. The Goo Goo Dolls. I don't know who they are, but my mom likes them, so it should be fantastic. And make sure you go get some swag. I'm Brandon. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and I am the future.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and CEO, Cornerstone, Adam Miller.
Thank you, guys. Welcome to Convergence. Thank you all for being here. We have, as Chris said, an amazing lineup for you. Great speakers, great sessions, and hopefully a great time for everybody. It never ceases to amaze me what people will do for a t-shirt. You know, those t-shirts cost like $6. So, at Convergence, we often talk about the future. We try to pontificate on what the future might hold, on what's coming in the future. And this is basically what technology companies do, right? They try to somewhat predict or at least influence the future. But I feel like recently we've been inundated with views of the future by Hollywood. Science fiction is back on the rise, and what's particularly interesting is this new genre called near-fi. Near-fi basically takes technology that already exists and extends it just a little bit further. Unfortunately, almost every view that Hollywood gives you is a dystopian view of the universe. And so, within a couple of years, if you watch Black Mirror, everything will be a disaster and nobody wants to be around. What I want to do today is talk about not so much the future, but the present. Because what we've predicted in the past has actually already come to fruition. And these things are not the distant future. Maybe it's the near future, but in many cases, it already is the reality. And what hopefully we get out of our conversation today is not a fear of the future, but an understanding of what to do about it. Because it's already the reality. And we shouldn't be surprised. The world is a very different place, but we had warning a long time ago. So I grew up in New Jersey. And one of the things that always fascinated me were toll booths. Now, for anybody that's been to Jersey, you know there's lots of turnpikes and parkways and bridges to get into New York, so there are lots of toll booths. And when I was a kid, a young kid, I actually thought that working at a toll booth was a pretty cool job. You got to meet all these people, and they kept giving you money, and you got to give the money back, and you had to figure out how much change to give people. This is before everybody gave you a 20 and you had to just subtract from 20. There was actually different mixes of currency. And that job, when I was a little bit older, sort of went away because they came up with these machines that took the money for you. Now it must be a really old photo because I think it's like $6.50 to go over the bridge now. But that was a fun time also. I didn't really regret them getting rid of a lot of the toll booth operators because you got to try to throw the change over from the passenger side. I don't know if you've ever done that. So that was really fun. But now if you're in New Jersey, of course, you have an Easy Pass. Not only are there no toll booth operators, but there aren't even toll booth machines. You just drive through. I don't live in New Jersey anymore. I live in California. And California is where we innovate. So in California, we don't have Easy Passes anymore because you got to slow down to get those RFID cards read. California, if you go up to 73 now, actually if you go from San Diego to LA, for those of you that are flying out of LAX, if you take the 73, it's a toll road. The thing is, there's no toll booth. So there's no toll operator, there's no coin machine, there's not even an Easy Pass. All you have to do is drive as fast as you can, because it's a toll road, so I don't think there are any police on the road. So most people, you can see in this picture, I think this guy's doing 80, and most of the people don't slow down at all. And it's taking a picture. It probably is also clocking your speed, so it can send you a debit or a request for payment directly to you based on your information at the DMV, and if you're going too fast, it probably also sends you a ticket. That was something that happened over many, many years. So we had this coming, right? If you were paying attention, particularly if you like these toll booths, you already saw what was coming in the future. There used to be a lot of toll booth operators. Today, software is completely eating the world. We talked about this last year, but let me give you some statistics. 10 years ago, there were 10,000 software companies. Today, so that was 10 years ago. Today, there are over 100,000 software companies. And by 2027, so the stat came out last year, so it was roughly 10 years later, they predict that there will be over 1 million software companies. That's according to Forrester Research. 1 million software companies. I talked about this last year. They did a poll of Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 CEOs, and they asked everybody very simple information. What's your name? What's the name of your company? How many employees do you have? What's your revenue? What industry are you in? 70% of the CEOs said that they were in technology. So even traditional companies have changed the way they think about their business. And the reality is that organizations have to innovate or they're going to fail. And this is not a prediction. I don't need to predict this anymore. This is already happening. So think about this. 60 years ago, or actually 1958, the average lifespan of a company was 60 years. That meant not that every startup would last 60 years, but if you had a company that made it through the first year or so, it was likely that that corporation was going to last 60 years. In 2012, that number was reduced by 75%. The average company lasted 15 years. I'm pleased to report that Cornerstone is 18 years old. Today, so only a few years later, the average lifespan is even less than it was a few years ago. So the number keeps going down. And the reality is technology is changing industry after industry. CEOs have to upskill and reskill their workforces. It's just the reality of what's happening. At this point, 90% of all CEOs surveyed expect their companies to be disrupted by technology. The only thing surprising about that stat is the 10% that think their companies are not going to be disrupted. They have to upskill the workforce, but the reality is most of them don't believe they're equipped with the right skills for the future, with the right skills to be competitive, with the right skills to compete, not 10 or 20 years from now, right? The lifespan of the company isn't expected to be that long. 3 or 5 years from now. In the companies that haven't adapted to this change, to the way that the world is transitioning, those companies are no longer around. All of these companies are disappearing. Their stores are closing. Their businesses are liquidating. And this is something that's happening across industries. You think about a company like Toys R Us. It was an iconic company for the childhood of many, many people. And now doesn't exist. Company doesn't exist. Jeffrey doesn't exist. And it's not just companies, it's people, it's jobs. And there's not any position out there that's immune. This is impacting every position in every company. If it hasn't impacted your position already, it means that you've already been developing and you just haven't been paying attention. It's just part of what you naturally do. Or it means that it's coming. It just hasn't happened yet. But it's happening. It's happening across the board. If you think about kids today, 65% of kids in primary school today will have jobs when they graduate college that don't exist right now. So that kid in the video, it's highly unlikely that he will have a job that exists when he graduates college. He'll be in some new field. So think about it. In the last 5 years, jobs were created that didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago. Virtual reality consultants, social media managers, data scientists, driverless car engineers, drone operators, user experience managers. These things simply didn't exist. Some of them are even made up now, like millennial generation experts. I don't know what kind of job that is. It's every industry that's being disrupted. It doesn't matter. If you think about how you live your life now, think about what you did this past weekend. This past weekend, my son had a soccer tournament. It was in some town I never heard of, somewhere in the middle of California. So I checked Waze to figure out what time I had to leave. I used GPS to get there. They had a ridiculously long break between games, so we checked to see what movies were playing at the local movie theater, bought tickets online, and on the way there realized we had to stop for brunch, and so we actually checked Google Maps to figure out what restaurants were nearby, checked Yelp to figure out which of the restaurants were good, and then used GPS to get to that restaurant that was near the movie theater, went to breakfast, went to the movie, went back to the soccer game. That's just the way we live now. None of those things would have been possible 10 years ago. Probably not even 5 years ago. And it's hard to explain to kids today, right? They don't understand that we used to just drive around near the soccer field and hope we found a restaurant. That's why so many of us ate at McDonald's all the time. So it was the only one we knew. It's just a different world. And so as a result, every industry is being impacted. In that case, it was transportation, it was entertainment, it was food and beverage, right? That was all just one afternoon. If you think about almost any aspect of your life, the way you do things is very different now than the way you used to do things. And this impacts every single industry that you used to interact with. That's what you do at home. Of course, it's even more true if you think about your jobs. Technology's changed our lives. It's changed the industries we work in. It's changed the companies we work for. But it's also changed our jobs. And as a result, work has changed. Every aspect of work is different, and the skills you need to be effective at your job, the competencies that the employees need to be effective, to be competitive, are changing. So, how do you stay successful in business? Your business needs to evolve. It's that simple. Your business needs to evolve in this new world, and because things are changing so quickly, your business needs to evolve with the pace of change. And that pace is increasing, it's accelerating. But that's not enough. In order to change your company, you obviously have to evolve your people. And today's people are the ones that are going to solve tomorrow's problems. So they're the ones you have to focus on. They're the ones you have to develop. So I want to look at what's changed, right? What's changed both in the way we manage people, the way we work with people, and in the jobs that people have had. Because if there were enough people to just reskill the organization tomorrow by just replacing all the people you have, hopefully your company won't do that, but a lot of companies would. A lot of companies would just say, oh, you know what, it's easier, I'll just get new people, and the new people will know how to do things. It's not that easy. In fact, even the whole concept of how we attract and recruit people is extremely different than it used to be. So think about this. If you were looking for unskilled workers, right, people like truck drivers or mechanics or factory workers, there are now a higher number of applicants than there are jobs. Well, okay, fine. There's always more applicants than there are jobs. But think about this for a minute. So in 2012, there were about 1.5 million jobs for mechanics. And the average salary was close to $40,000. Now the average salary, so that was 2012, that was 6 years ago. Now, the average salary is still the same, still around $40,000. But there are half the number of jobs available for mechanics than there were 6 years ago. That's kind of crazy if you think about it. Now, why is that happening? It's happening because the machines are evolving, right? It's not just the people that need to change, but the machines are changing, which is forcing the need for the people to change. So this is interesting. So on the left here, you see a tractor. What you might not recognize is that on the right is also a tractor. It's a new autonomous tractor. What does that mean? It is a self-correcting, self-driving tractor for farms. No joke. These require people to fix things in a very different way. So, for example, the company that's producing these tractors said that in the past, you had mechanics with wrenches and toolboxes that would fix the equipment that we had, right? They had multi-million-dollar, or it wasn't that expensive before. They had machines that were hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars, and the mechanics would fix the machines. Now the machines are much more expensive. And the machines actually have self-tuning computers. So what that means is the guy with the wrench is no longer required because the tractor itself will tighten the wrenches when the computer notices that a part on the tractor is loose. And the job title has changed because these are now technical jobs. They need scientists to actually be the ones fixing these machines. The toolbox has become a computer. And fixing tractors now requires advanced mathematics skills in order to fix these machines. How about truck drivers? There were 3.5 million truck drivers right now in the US. If you think about all the people that work with truck drivers, so people that help the truck drivers, train the truck drivers, support truck drivers, work on the trucks, there's about 9 million people in the US that have those jobs. Do you think those jobs are going to be around in 10 years? Here's a video of an autonomous truck. Now, you hear a lot of people talking about driverless cars, but you also hear about all the issues with driverless cars, right? They can't see the pedestrian crossing the street. They can't deal with traffic going in multiple directions or all the stops and starts in a city. That's not true with trucking. Long-haul trucking stays predominantly on the freeway. They've already thought about how to deal with that last mile. It's probably the last 5 miles, but the time it takes to get from the highway to wherever the depot is. The issue they're trying to deal with is how do you get from where the warehouse was to the exit where the depot is. That could be hundreds of miles that need to be driven to get from one point to the next. These trucks work really, really well in those conditions. Here's what makes it even more likely that this is going to happen. The trucks are more fuel efficient, so they spend less money on gas. They have lower drag. They are self-correcting like the other tractors. And the driver never falls asleep, and the trucks can be operating 24 hours a day. Tell me why people would still have truck drivers. It's just the reality of the world. So you might be sitting there and thinking, oh yeah, I get it, right? The mechanics and the factory workers and the truck drivers are all in trouble. It's not just those jobs. You think it's only impacting certain jobs. It's not the reality. Think about all the assistants that are out there, right? All the executive assistants, the receptionists, the coordinators that help set things up and do things. Listen to this.
So how can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a women's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around?
At 12 p.m.
We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15.
Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.?
Okay, now that was obviously somebody setting up an appointment at a hair salon, but that could have been any kind of appointment, right? That could have been a sales meeting or a need to go to a doctor or anything else like that. So why am I showing you this conversation? Well, on the right side, that was Kathy on the phone at the hair salon answering the questions. On the left side, it's actually a robot. That was Google using an AI-enabled assistant to do the call. That's why everyone laughed when it said, because it wasn't a human. That was a machine. There are already people completely freaked out about this that are saying that at the beginning of the calls, it has to disclose that it's not a human on the call, because you will not be able to tell the difference. So just play that out a little bit. That exists. That was real. Play it out a little bit more. 5 million call center workers in the US, 20 million call center workers worldwide. What's the impact of that kind of technology on those kinds of jobs? This is real. This is happening. You can't stop it at this point. And it's global. This is happening globally. It's not just one part of the world or one industry or one job category that's being affected. This is everything. So what's the impact of this? The impact of this is that we are starting to see a massive difference between skilled jobs, which are plentiful, yet with very few skilled workers able to fill those jobs, on the one hand, and on the other hand, unskilled jobs that are very diminished and lots of unskilled labor. I like to call this the skills divide. We've talked a lot about the digital divide. Most of us now have digital technology, smartphones, broadband at home. This is the next thing to deal with, the skills divide. How are we going to deal with this massive difference? This is going to be the haves and the have-nots. The people who are skilled, that have lots of job opportunities, and the people that are unskilled, that have fewer and fewer and fewer job opportunities. We talked about truck drivers. Let's stick with that for a second. The average truck driver in 1980 was making $110,000 a year. Today, that truck driver, adjusted for inflation, is making $40,000 a year. $110,000 to $40,000. And that's if they have a job. I just showed you that most of those jobs are going to go away entirely. The recruiters are overwhelmed in dealing with these unskilled positions because of the number of applicants that are coming in. So do the math for a second. Your average recruiter has about 40 requisitions that they deal with. And each job opening is getting about 250 applicants. That means that they have to deal with 10,000 applicants for the jobs that they're managing. 10,000. And this is really interesting. Only about 2% of those applicants are actually qualified to do the job. So you got to find the 2% out of those 10,000. Here's a real example. So this is a Siemens plant, a factory that was opened in North Carolina. There were 800 jobs that they were creating at that factory. They had 10,000 applicants for that job. Think about it for a minute. It's almost harder to get a job at a factory than to get into a top-tier school. And yet, only about 15% of those people, out of those 10,000 people, had the very minimum qualifications in reading and writing and mathematics to even be qualified for the job. So for the recruiter, this skills divide is causing a tidal wave of applicants for the relatively few jobs they have that they're trying to fill. And so they have the unpleasant responsibility of not just turning down thousands and thousands of people who are looking for work, but also trying to find a needle in a haystack. What about the other side of the equation? the skilled jobs. Well, there's about 7 million Americans looking for work today who don't possess the skills needed in the 6 million skilled jobs that are available. So there's enough people, just the people don't have the right skills. Since 1980, the number of jobs requiring technical skills increased by 90%. 90%. So this is a massive shift in the workforce. And there's just not enough people to do the work. So you can't, as a company, just hire for it. So not only don't those 7 million people have the skills, but we're not producing enough graduates to fill those jobs. So there's 600,000 open engineering jobs. And you wonder why people talk about STEM all the time. There's less than 100,000 people graduating with engineering degrees. So you have a gap of 500,000 jobs. It's very hard to find those people. So this is the other side of being a recruiter, of working in talent acquisition. Right? Historically, all you would need to do to make this happen was post an ad in a newspaper, right? You had a job, you put an ad in the classifieds in whatever region you needed to be in, and people would see your ad, they read the paper every day, and people would at least know that you had the job. Now, getting people to know you have the job is really, really, really hard. We're in an omni-channel world. There are tons of ways to interact with people, and as a result, it's very hard to predict which way people are going to actually look for a job, which thing they read every day. There's so many social media sites. There are so many different spots within those social media sites. There are so many online places to post and deal with. It's very difficult to find these people, and these people are completely inundated. Now, this stat I think is actually too high, but it makes the point. Even if it was per month, 32 solicitations a week for a skilled worker. So if you have a development manager at your company, or imagine if you had a mobile developer in your company, the number of times that they're being reached out to. Now, this isn't just phone calls. This is any kind of solicitation, and includes every time they get pinged on LinkedIn. It's happening dozens of times per month. How, as a company, are you supposed to stand out to get your people that you need for the jobs that you have open? The only way to do it is if you're competitive on the recruiting front. Right? So it's no longer that your company needs to be competitive. It does. But in order for your company to be competitive, you need the people who can make the company competitive. But to do that, you actually have to compete to attract those people. So it's become more competitive to operate a business today. It's not just businesses, right? It's any organization. Think about governments or schools or universities. Las Vegas a couple of years ago tried to hire teachers. It was almost impossible. They were begging teachers to come to Las Vegas. They could not get enough people to fill those jobs. We need, as an organization, to have a frictionless, engaging experience to attract the right people, to be able to select them, to hire them quickly, and to give them a really good onboarding experience, because you want to retain them also. And that's really what Cornerstone Recruiting is about. Cornerstone Recruiting is about managing this skills divide, dealing with both sides of the skills divide. So that means, first and foremost, a compelling, effective candidate experience. So if you somehow manage to get somebody who's the right person for the job to click on that link and go to your career site, what's their experience like? you have probably no more than 15 seconds to get them reeled in to actually want to understand and think about your company. And what we found is that most of this today is happening on mobile devices. We rolled out our mobile candidate experience, and in many cases, north of 60% of the people going to the career sites and filling out the applications are doing it from mobile devices. But it's about conversion, right? It's a little bit like e-commerce. You have to get people to go to the site. You then have to get them to put something in a shopping cart, which is effectively like an application. And then you got to get them to actually buy, which in this case is finish, submit the application. What we have found with our new candidate experience, it's 54% higher conversion rates than industry averages. So it works. But it's not just about finding the candidate for those skilled jobs. For the unskilled jobs, for those entry-level jobs, it's also about sorting through and selecting the right people despite the massive influx of candidates that you're going to have. That huge influx of applicants. How do you do that? How do you manage that process? Well, having a simplified way to do this. This is what we put out. Our managed candidates system just came out with our May release, and it's modeled off of Kayak. So for those of you that travel a lot, you know that Kayak lets you sift very quickly through all of the different travel options when you go from point A to point B and make a really quick decision on which flight to take. Same exact idea. It's to help you sift through all the candidates, irrespective of what job rec they applied for, or even if they just applied for the company, and understand exactly how to put those pieces together, how to advance the right people. We're working on, as Summer and Tammy will talk about tomorrow, artificial intelligence to help with auto-progression of candidates so the right people are being interviewed and the right people are being selected. You also, as part of this, want to streamline the interview process. Some of the tech companies recently have turned to this idea of actually paying a bonus if somebody comes in to interview. That's how competitive it's getting. Not if you got the job, but if you come in to interview. Because these people get so many solicitations that they don't even want to go through the hassle of having to go interview for the job. Now, of course, you need them to interview for the job. So that interview experience has to be a good experience for the candidate. It's got to be easy for them to be able to do the interview. And maybe most importantly, once they're hired, you have a pretty short window to make that first impression. Right? What is their first day like? What's their first week, month, 6 months like at the company? Most companies with high turnover, the turnover's happening in the first 60 to 90 days. It's that initial experience. People don't think it's a good fit. People don't think the company seems modern enough. They don't care about my development. They're not personalizing the experience for me. Right? People expect a consumer-like experience now. So onboarding, the induction of new employees is very different than it used to be, and the expectations of how people get onboarded is very different than it used to be. And lastly, you want to optimize the way you are going through this process. You want to make sure that people are having an optimal experience, but also that your recruiters are working efficiently and effectively, your hiring managers are being effective, people aren't waiting too long to make decisions because the candidates aren't waiting around. So making sure that you're being effective in the whole process is really important to manage that skills divide, to deal with both sides of the equation. But it's not enough. It's not enough to just track the applicants. It's not enough to recruit. Because there aren't enough people to fill all those jobs, you also have to develop the employees that you have. You cannot recruit your way out of this. There's not enough people to recruit. So people need to be skilled. And in this world, in this frenetic pace of change, the reality is that learning can no longer be a one-time activity. Learning has to be a lifetime activity. And that's true no matter if you're an entry-level person or if you are absolutely at the top of your game. The pace of change has accelerated. And so every position, no matter what it is changing in ways that are very different than the past. It's why people are moving jobs so quickly, right? It's part of it. It's this idea that these jobs are evolving and changing and transforming, sometimes in ways people like, sometimes in ways people don't like. But in either case, the people need to keep developing. And this is true in many aspects of our lives now. I'm always fascinated by sports, by the way the bar keeps being raised in sports. Because it's easy to think about in the job, right? Technology is changing, it's impacting your job. But actually, technology, as we know, also impacts sports. The way people are training is very different than it used to be. People train now on simulation devices so they could train all year long, irrespective of what season the sport is normally done in. They have different fitness regimens. They have health and wellness programs that are making people more fit, more capable, but they're also continuing to learn. So let me give you an example from the Winter Olympics. I found this completely fascinating. Shaun White, one of the best Olympians we've ever had in the US. On the left, that's Shaun White in the 2006 Olympics. This is when he's doing his gold medal run. On the right is Shaun White in the 2018 Olympics doing his qualifying run. He won a gold medal doing 1 revolution. He qualified for the finals doing 4.5. And that was somebody who was already at the top of the game. It's continuous development, continuous training, getting better and better at what you do because the bar keeps being raised. We're just in a competitive environment now. We're in a globalized economy where people are trying all over the world to be the best. And companies all over the world are competing with your company. And so the bar has been raised. So we need to keep learning. We need to make sure our people are developing. And as part of that, there's more and more specialization, right? Jobs are becoming more specialized. Why? Because there's more to know in these jobs. And so there's a need, as the jobs become more technical, for the jobs to be more specific. It just takes longer to learn all that stuff. And what's driving this really is the next industrial revolution. What does that even mean? What is the next industrial revolution? It sounds good, but we're now moving into the 4th industrial revolution. The first one, with the invention of water power, steam power, had some mechanization to what we did. We moved out of just being an agrarian society. The second revolution is the one we think of as the Industrial Revolution, right? That was the advent of electricity, of factories, of mass production, assembly lines. The third Industrial Revolution happened with computational power, right? The ability to automate processes, the ability to use technology to do some of the work, some of the thinking. But the 4th Industrial Revolution is driven almost entirely by data, by using big data to provide artificial intelligence, leverage machine learning to make things better and better and better, to continuously improve. And so in this new era that we're living in, that's happening literally right now, new skills are an imperative to empower that revolution, right? I talked about some of the new jobs that exist around things like data science. What this means is that in this new world, skills have become the new digital currency. It's about skills. And so we need companies and businesses and nonprofits and trade associations and governments and schools that are able to develop the skills of their people. It's a reality. Businesses that have strong learning cultures are simply more effective. They have higher productivity. They innovate faster. They are having better retention, and they're more effective. But it's not just the competitive drivers, right? It's not just the financials, the economics that encourage this. It's actually being demanded. And it's being demanded by the employees themselves. And what's particularly interesting is it's being demanded by the best employees, right? The ones you would think are already developed. They're the ones that say, no. I might be the best at this company at doing this, but I know I need to be better. So it's the high potential employees, the high performers that are insisting on more development. And when development is not happening, with now close to half the workforce as millennials, they're just leaving, right? If a millennial's at your company and they don't feel like they're learning enough, they'll just go to another company that is helping them develop. Because the employees need to stay relevant. They understand this. Younger employees definitely understand this. The need to keep learning. The need to leverage all the different modalities of training to be more effective at their jobs. Right? It's not just about classroom training anymore. It's about mobile learning, social learning, blended learning. It's about doing it on all different devices. It's about doing it in all different formats, everything from extensive month-long or year-long certification programs to the smallest micro-learning courses. Might be 90 seconds long. And to do this effectively for your people, you have to have a holistic solution. It's just the reality. It's gotten too difficult. It's too demanding. The needs for the employees are changing too quickly. Even the content itself is transforming, right? The content that was built 20 years ago doesn't work on mobile, but over half the consumption is done on mobile devices of training. I'm not just talking about movies and TV. Training done on mobile devices. And it needs the ability to deal with both sides of the equation, both the administration of training, right, the compliance training that's required for companies, the regulatory training, but also the training the employees are getting for themselves, right? The training that the employees are pulling themselves, and you need to deal with the content as well. So what we've been working on over the last few years that we now have today is enabling Cornerstone Learning to become that holistic solution for you, to deal with every aspect of training and development. So that includes very deep, highly configurable learning management, able to deal with the complexities of managing large learning programs around the globe. Most organizations today have become global. There are regional compliance requirements. There are different needs in different business units. There's complexity around what different positions or even levels within those positions need to learn, need to do, and having a simple, intuitive way to manage that, to enable that, is really important. But at the same time, you have to have a consumer-like interface for the employees. We have all gotten used to that Netflix metaphor for consuming video, for consuming media. We expect personalization. We expect the system to be smart enough to know what training I need next. We expect it to be really simple to search. We expect the interface to be elegant. But in the case of training, unlike entertainment, you also want to be reminded of the things that you actually have to do, right? Not just the things you want to do, but what do I have to do? We've put that all in a single interface with our learning experience platform that's part of Cornerstone Learning. But that's not enough. You also need the content. And the content needs to be continuously curated because the needs vary by industry, but they also vary by department. They vary by role. And how do you keep that content curated? How do you deal with all of the changing needs and skills required, competencies required in these different groups? So as Chris mentioned, we did a survey before the conference. We understand the challenges that people are having with content. We understand the needs that people have with content and how this complexity is affecting your jobs when you're the ones responsible for delivering the training and development programs. We understand how challenging this can be. But at the same time, we understand that you can't do it all yourself. We understand that you need to have modern content, right? Not outdated content. That it needs to be cost effective because you're no longer only training the executives. You have to train everybody. Everybody expects to be developed. You understand that you can't really rely on just one vendor for the training because there's too many different requirements. The skills have gotten too refined. Things are too specialized now. You need experts in the different subject matter. You also realize that you have to do it both top-down and bottom-up. You have to do it both ways, meaning the company is requiring some training, but at the same time, the employees are asking for certain training. And it needs to be curated, right? We've gotten used to things like Spotify that just tell us what to listen to. We don't need to think about it. We tell them some song we like, and it's going to tell us the music we could listen to for the next 5 hours. People have become used to that kind of opportunity. And so we have rolled out the Cornerstone Content Anytime subscription service offering, right? The idea of giving you content whenever you need it, all you can eat, completely modern, mobile enabled, that allows you to have highly curated content across multiple providers when you need it, available for everybody. And we understand that it's very difficult to get this kind of content yourself. So we now have a team of content experts that is curating these subscriptions. We've hand-selected not only the providers, but the titles from those providers for the subscription. And we understand the benefits of the scale we have. So last year, we had about 400 million course registrations, online class registrations, flow through Cornerstone. We have a massive amount of data about training and development. And that data is about both third-party training that your organizations have consumed, but also the proprietary training you consume. We understand what subjects people need. We understand what's needed by different industries. And so we're leveraging that data. We are leveraging that data by doubling down on our Content Anytime subscription service. So we are about to roll out multiple types of subscriptions in addition to the Content Anytime Essentials subscription that we've talked about in the past. What do I mean by that? I mean subscriptions that are specific to industries, like healthcare content anytime, or manufacturing content anytime. Subscriptions that are relevant for certain functions in your organization, sales content anytime. So very deep content about how to be an effective salesperson. Customer support content anytime. Regional subscriptions, things that are applicable to certain parts of the world by language. German content anytime, French content anytime, Spanish content anytime. Because we understand the need for localization in certain markets. But we're also working on thematic subscriptions. Executive development content anytime. Digital transformation content anytime. Helping you get your employees trained for the future. And speaking of the future, we've partnered up with the Institute for the Future. Now, the Institute for the Future does something really cool. You want to talk about a cool job? You'll hear from Bob later. This is a cool job. They sit around and think about the future all day long, and they get to talk to the people that are driving the future. They come into their offices, they are talking to tech luminaries and business champions who are really driving the future. And they try to understand, what does that vision of the future look like? And how do we navigate that future? So we've partnered up with them to create in our Cornerstone Content Anytime Essentials subscription playlists that are specific to the 5 skills for the future that the Institute for the Future has developed. So these are the skills that they believe people will need to be effective in the future. Now, if I were to sum it all up, I would define it with one word: adaptability. Right? People today started talking not about IQ or EQ, but AQ. How adaptable is the person? What's our adaptability quotient? Why? Because things are changing so fast that the only thing you know for certain is that things are going to change. So you need people that can adapt to changes. These are more refined competencies within that. This is how to be effective over the next 5 or 10 years. So what we've done is, in partnership with them, created playlists, leveraging our new playlist technology, leveraging our Cornerstone Content Anytime subscription to build playlists around all 5 of those competencies. And just so you guys could check it out, it's going to be available in the Client Success Center for the next month for free. So you go into the Client Success Center, and at least you guys, if you don't buy it for the whole company, at least you will be equipped for the future. So your job will be safe. See, that's way more valuable than the t-shirts, but you guys were much more excited about the t-shirts. But training and development, while required, is not necessarily sufficient. And the reality is, we did a statistic that was everybody outside of Cornerstone. Only about 13% of employees are engaged worldwide. And in the US, about 33% are engaged with their job. Now, that probably was a US study. If I look at the EMEA study, it's the opposite. But the reality is, people need the development, but they need more, right? Employees expect mobility in their organization. And companies that are investing in employee engagement, no surprise, are more productive. They're more effective. They actually get really good return on that investment. And people are expecting real career development. Most people expect now to be able to move in their jobs. They expect mobility. But what's interesting about that is the mobility is very different than it used to be. The mobility today is not straight up. The mobility today, people sometimes talk about the career lattice. People want to sometimes move up. They sometimes want to move back down, take some time off. They might want to make a lateral move. We see this all the time at Cornerstone. Now, a lot of people think that's the millennials, but that's not true. Actually, I see this all the time with Gen Xers and even boomers who have moved up in their career. There's a period of time where they were trying to move up as quickly as possible, but then because of family responsibilities or a change in circumstances, they wanted to take a step back. They wanted to go from being a manager to an individual contributor, but then that situation was resolved or the kids went off to college and they wanted to go back into the management world. Happens all the time. We just had a really good example of that at Cornerstone on our sales team. Somebody who was a top salesperson became a sales manager, needed some less travel, went back to being an individual contributor, and now actually runs our enterprise team. So we've seen a lot of people make these movements, and it's not straight up. People expect mobility, and people want to understand what the options are. What kind of career path can I have at your organization? Sometimes millennials will ask that during the interview. It's something that'll come up that early in the process. But this is true whether it's explicit or implicit, whether the employee admits it or not. They're thinking about, where do I go from here? Right? What's next? How does my role increase? Or what are other opportunities I have? Not necessarily in this same department, which means not necessarily with this manager. How many managers at your organization are willing to have a truly objective conversation with one of their direct reports about their career opportunities in your organization outside of their team, outside of their department? Probably not that many. So people want visibility into what those options are. And a lot of companies are losing people even though the perfect job for them is in another department or in another division or in another office, perhaps somewhere else in the world. And the reason is because the employees simply don't have visibility into those opportunities. They don't understand what's out there for them. And even if they saw a list of all the openings, it's not personalized for them. It's not curated. They don't understand which of the 500 job openings are actually applicable for them. So it's easier for them to just go out and search for a new job somewhere else. What we're building is a new career center to solve that problem. Really taking together all the capabilities we have around performance management, around recruiting, knowing what your open jobs are, knowing what those pipelines look like, around training and development to help the employee navigate the opportunities within your organization, and supply them with the right development plans they need to be effective at that job. So I want to actually show this to you. So I'd like to invite to the stage Tammy Hahn, who's going to give you a preview of the new Cornerstone Career Center.
Thanks, Adam. So you've spent a lot of money on improving your recruiting systems to attract the right talent. You've invested in learning and development by getting a Content Anytime bundle. Now I'm going to show you how to retain those employees and keep those upskilled workers with our new Career Center. So let's imagine that I work at Acme Corporation, and I've been a customer support agent for a couple of years, and I don't know what I want to do next. I'm getting emails from recruiters, I'm looking around, not quite sure what to do. So I've logged on to Acme's Career Center, and I'm taken to a branded Acme experience. Now this is branded for Acme, but of course this is very easily branded for your organization. You don't need an HTML expert. It's drag and drop, very easy for you to do. But this makes me feel like I'm part of the Acme family. So here on this Career Center page, at the top of the page, I can search for any positions or jobs that I know are already available, if I knew about them. I can see a carousel of featured jobs. So these are jobs that Acme has highlighted that are critical roles that they need to fill immediately. So you can choose whatever jobs appear at the top. As I move down the page, I can see recommended positions and career paths that are generated by Cornerstone's machine learning that understand the different employee movements that have happened historically at Acme, as well as my skills and attributes that might contribute to these algorithms that are recommending positions and career paths. As I move down the page, I can watch a short video about Acme, again, making me feel like I'm part of that Acme family. You can brand this however you want. If you have a video, if you have a skit, whatever it might be, to keep your employees feeling like they're part of that family. As I move further down the page, I can see an area where I can manage my career resources. So that can be anything from saved positions or referrals I've made for other open positions, or applications I've already applied for. So I'm not quite sure what I want to do with my life. I know that I'm incredibly talented and I've got places to go and things to do and be somebody great. But I don't know exactly what that means. I have a few colleagues who've also been customer support agents, and they've moved on to sales operations roles, but I'm not quite sure I want to do that. I just want to know what's out there. So I'm going to click into the career path. So here I can see a visualization of all of the different paths that my fellow customer support agents have taken along the way. The thickness of the line indicates to me the frequency in which these moves have occurred. So I can see from this visual that many people have moved on to become sales managers, sales directors, and then the VP of sales. That's pretty compelling that there's all these different opportunities that are available to me that have already happened in the past. Pretty cool. So if I'm really interested in something, I can look at the bottom of the page, and if I hover over this position tile, it highlights the exact path for me in the visual, so I can clearly see where I can go from that position forward. That's pretty interesting. I'm going to go ahead, bookmark this position so that I can easily refer back to it right on that Career Center homepage. A couple of weeks later, I'm talking to Adam over by the water cooler. We have a very high-tech, fancy one that also puts out sparkling water, which I love. And he tells me that there's a business development representative opening that he thinks that I might be a good fit for. Adam knows a lot about what's going on in this company. And he thinks that I should go and apply for it. So I'm going to go ahead and search for that position. And as you can see, it's a very clear search result that's very similar to what you would find in an external career site. Why should you give up any of the experience for your candidates just because I'm an internal employee? I should feel special too. So here on this page, I can clearly see all the open jobs that are available that are associated to business development. On the left-hand side, I have search filters. So I can easily filter by locations I want to be at, or even by job types, whether it's a part-time or full-time position. Very configured. So I'm going to go ahead and look at this business development representative position that Adam just told me about. Here I'm taken to the job details page, and there's a lot of information here about this job, all very interesting. So things like the requirements that are necessary for this job and how I stack up against those requirements. As I scroll down the page, I can see the skills and competencies associated to this position, and if I've previously been evaluated on those competencies, how I stack up against the target ratings needed for this particular role. So in this example, I can see that I have a skill gap for forecasting and data management or organizational skills. So I know that I need to work on those competencies before I can necessarily qualify for this job. If I haven't been evaluated on a particular competency, I can launch the assessment right from this page. As I move further down the page, I can see recommended learning based off of those competency gaps that will help me develop and grow to be a good fit for this particular role. And I can see highlighted the ones that are targeted at the competencies that I need to continue to develop in. And if I want to create a collection of these, I can create a development plan right from this screen. As I move further down the page, I see a list of mentors that I can connect with. Mentors might be people that have previously held the role and have moved on to become more successful in their careers, or people currently in role that I can speak to. And finally, at the bottom of the page, because growth and development is so important to me, I can understand the career paths from this particular role. So it's great that I want this particular role, but what might I do in the future after this? So this all looks great. I'm going to go ahead and apply directly from this page. And because I'm already an employee and Acme uses Cornerstone across all of the different product suites, I can easily apply with this with data from my universal profile. So with one click, I can fill out the application. So everything is up there, including a position, my previous positions, everything that I've previously loaded into the system, all easily done with one click. And then I go ahead and submit that application, and I'm done. And just like that, Acme, along with Cornerstone, has helped me to navigate my own future and go ahead and start that journey as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Sammy. So that really helps. That helps you keep your people, helps you retain your people. But even that might not be enough, right? Because what about the current job they're in before they go look for the next job? Or maybe Tammy already just moved to that new role. What's going to keep her motivated? Well, one thing that motivates people is obviously recognition of what they've done in their job. And we believe when you talk about performance management, you really need to have a balanced approach. You need to balance the measurement of the employee, which is, of course, important to be able to understand the data that Tammy just showed, used a different way, with the development of the employee, everything we've been talking about. Cornerstone Performance lets you do both. It lets you take a measured approach to both development and tracking of the employee. And that's everything from managing goal setting, making sure that the company goals and the team goals and even the individual's goals are top of mind. It's ensuring that you're doing those periodic reviews, which I think even in the modern era are still relevant because you want not just feedback, but the ability to look at trends over time. You want to be able to take time and reflect on the employee's performance, not since yesterday, but over some more lengthy period of time. You want to be able to pay people based on how they're performing. Are they being compensated effectively for what they're doing and not simply based on tenure? Right? How are you compensating your people? Merit increases, bonuses, equity awards. Are you actually being equitable in how you are delivering those? Now, feedback's important. We're working on something new called Cornerstone Conversations that will allow for both structured and unstructured feedback in the form of not just anonymous or periodic feedback, but scheduled check-ins where you have a certain frequency, for example, every 2 weeks, where the employee and the manager meet to talk about their goals of the last 2 weeks, their goals for the next 2 weeks, and any accomplishments and challenges that have happened along the way. It's what we do in agile development. It's just applying that same concept to all jobs, not just development jobs. It's talent mobility, what Tammy just showed you. The ability for an employee to have real visibility about what the opportunities are in an organization, the ability to understand where they can go next, and what development they need to get there. But sometimes it's not the employee deciding, sometimes it's the company deciding where are their gaps. Where do we need more bench strength? Where do we need a stronger talent pool? Who is capable of stepping in if somebody leaves the organization, not just at the most senior executive roles, but really throughout the organization? How do you manage that across all those different groups? And Cornerstone Performance brings that all together. But we've spent a lot of time talking about people. It's not just about the people. It's also about how you manage all the data that you have to bring it all together. You have to be able to manage your employee data. You have to be able to analyze your people data. And you need to be able to integrate sources of data like Cornerstone to other systems that you might use. Now, you're not alone. 85% of companies think that their HR data is not accurate. Right? So those HRIS systems that you have where you say, oh, the management hierarchy is not right, 85% of the time that's right. It's true in other companies. It's actually wrong. The data is wrong. And so having a better way of being able to get that data and to actually generate useful information from that data. How do you get the analytics? Most companies today aren't able, even if they have the data stored somewhere, able to produce effective reports and meaningful analytics based on that data. Cornerstone HR is meant to solve that problem. So Cornerstone HR is helping you take your existing systems and build upon them to create a modern, intuitive interface that allows you to do the basics, right? Allows you to manage your employee data, update your employee data, manage your organizational records, enable employees and managers to do self-service so they're not calling HR every time they have to update something. It's about workforce planning, being able to use the data to understand what are your headcount requirements in the future? What do you need next year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? How do you tie all that together? It's about being able to visualize the data. How do you understand who your top performers are? How do you see in a visual way, in a simplified interface, who is high potential? Who is paid the right way? Who's high risk? Where do you have performance gaps? And the reality is 1 in 4 of your employees right now are probably high risk of loss. They're high retention risks. They're thinking about leaving right now. And that stat, if you look at some of the other stats, might even be understated. So having a way to visualize that data, to understand where do you have an issue, and then be able to take action on the data, right? How do you drive engagement in the organization? Well, one way to do it is to actually know what the engagement is in the organization. Where do you have issues? A lot of times it's not a company-wide issue. A lot of times it's a divisional or departmentally specific issue. So how do you understand where the challenge is, where you might have an issue? And how do you benchmark yourself? How do you understand how your organization is performing, how your organization stacks up against your peers, right? Your cohort. Cornerstone today has about 3,500 clients in every industry. And so we're able to benchmark your data against data of your peer group, by industry, by geography, or by size. But even having that data requires you to do things with it and move that data. So we've been working on Edge, which really is intended to help you manage data to and from the Cornerstone solution, enabling you to extend the solution, allowing for simpler, faster integrations, allowing for the creation of connectors that make it easy if, for example, you have a background check provider that's unique for your industry and your geography and one that we don't already partner with. Make it easy to connect. And with APIs that make it easy for you to extend the solution, combine it with other systems and solutions that you have in your organization. We've built out the Edge Marketplace. If you haven't been to it recently, it's actually filled with partners that with literally one click, you're able to integrate the solution by yourself without needing to call support, without needing to get help from the vendor or from us. And we're doing it across many different categories today. It's all part of your solution in the Edge Marketplace. And for people that want to go beyond that, that want to extend the Cornerstone solution to other partners or other systems that you have, we now have the API Explorer. So these are application programming interfaces that are easy to consume, easy to understand, that allow your IT departments to extend what you're doing in Cornerstone with other systems that you might have in the company or your intranet. So what we've tried to do here is deliver a unified human capital management solution for the skills economy, really bringing together all these different aspects. But for us, HCM is a misnomer. To us, it's not really about human capital. What we're interested in is human potential. How do we help you realize the potential of your employees? To do that, it can't just be about the product. It's not just about the platform. It's also how we work together. It's about the partnership. It's about the experience that you have with Cornerstone. So we've always been focused on client success, but we're putting our money where our mouths are. We've been investing heavily, not just in product innovation, but also in client success. And so we're working on very specific objectives. We're working on better support tools, making it easier for you to interact with us and easier for us to respond to you. We're working on improving response times, counting things in very short increments so that we're able to meet your needs when you have them, and optimizing the way we manage your cases, the way you submit your cases, the way you get responses to your cases, the visibility you have in your interactions with us. And so we've done a few different initiatives to make this a reality. The first is that we have transformed our global support organization. We are reorganizing the team into work streams. They will still be locally managed. They will still be global teams, but we're specializing. We're doing what I was talking about. These jobs need to be more specialized. It doesn't make sense anymore for people to be generalists. The system is too broad. Your questions have become too complex. The needs are too specific. And so we're focusing on a technical solution group, which will help deal with any issues you're having with the platform itself, a service project team, that will deal with any work orders or service requests that you have that need to be handled by us, a specialty group that will manage things like translations and Cornerstone for Salesforce and specific requirements you have around IT and networking. And maybe most importantly, and you'll see it here today in the exhibit hall, we've created an answer desk. It's going to be staffed by Cornerstone experts. We call them corner coaches. We already have some of them today at the exhibit hall if you have any questions while you're here at Convergence. The answer desk will allow you by appointment to answer any question you have about the system. And that team itself is going to be specialized. We'll have experts in every product area to make sure you get exactly the answer you need right away when you have the question. But people aren't enough. We also need the right tools. And so we are implementing right now, literally this week, a new interactive voice response system, making it easier for you to get your case routed the right way, getting you to the right people right away, and providing more support just through the system. We're also adding a new implementation of Service Cloud, which is going to give you access to a machine learning-based knowledge base combined with a community that will give you ongoing support and interactivity. It will allow you to see updates to your cases in real time. It will allow you to quickly submit, but also get access to any help right on the spot before you submit the case. So leveraging tools, leveraging technology to make a much better experience. And the last piece of this is how it all gets packaged together. So at the beginning of the year, we announced our new client success packages that really simplify how you work with us, ensuring that you're getting all the support you need. So everything from ongoing product support to online training that continues to be updated and evolved with the Cornerstone University team, the technical support that you need, and the tools to help you continuously optimize the solution. We realize that the 4 major releases a year is both amazing and a challenge. You love the innovation, but it's challenging to have that much change during the year. So these optimization workshops help to ensure that your use of the system stays healthy, that you're up to date, that you're leveraging the tools that you have available to you. As you know, we don't have versions of the software. Everybody is on today's version of the system. Everybody's on the same instance. But everything can be turned on or off. And so there may be very beneficial features in the system today that because you rolled out the system 5 years ago, you're not using because you never turned it on. Maybe you were out when we did that release and you didn't notice that that new feature became available, and that's exactly what you need to be more effective. We're going to help you do that. We're going to help ensure, us and our partners are going to help ensure that you're getting those health checks, you're getting that optimization support, and you're getting the help that you need. And why are we doing this? Because we want to ensure your success. We have known since the first day of this company that the only way we're going to be successful is if our clients are successful. And that's why we're very proud of the retention rates that we have had since inception of the business. But we always know that there's more we could do. We always know that we could make you even more successful. And that's why we keep innovating. That's why we keep investing. And that's why we're making sure we have the right people, the right processes, and the right tools to make you successful. We don't want to limit the success, though, to our client base. We also want to make the community successful. As many of you know, in 2010, we launched the Cornerstone Foundation. I'm extremely proud of the work that the foundation has done over the years. We have delivered over $125 million of social impact, and we continue to innovate in that area. Many of you know about Disaster Ready and the work we've done around the world supporting the nonprofit organizations and NGOs that supply humanitarian aid around the world. But you also know that at least in the US, last year was the costliest year on record for natural disasters. Now, there's lots of reasons for this. Climate change certainly among them. But we're seeing an increase in the number of disasters. And as part of that increase, we've also seen an increase in the number of volunteers, which is fantastic, right? People want to help out. The problem is, a lot of times the spontaneous volunteers are not equipped to be effective in their disaster response. Right? Those volunteers aren't as helpful as they could be. So we're creating, and we've announced, Volunteer Ready, sort of an offshoot of what we've done with disasterready.org. Volunteer Ready is meant to help the 63 million volunteers that are donating their time and their sweat and tears to respond to the disasters that keep happening. Now, the reality is that those spontaneous volunteers, while intending to be helpful, in many cases, because they're not trained, are actually a hindrance to the humanitarian aid workers who are trained, who are trying to deliver aid. And so we've talked to our partners, and we understand that the issue is that these volunteers really need just-in-time training. They need to be trained for the disaster that they're responding to. They need to be able to access that training very easily, probably on their mobile phone, and they need to get the training from established response organizations. Right? Typically, when people volunteer spontaneously, they don't do it randomly. They actually volunteer spontaneously with an organization. So what we've done is, working with our disaster relief partners, have developed a curriculum of training and a platform to enable people to take that volunteer-needed training anytime from any device in response to a disaster. And we've made some real progress here. We already have great courses that the volunteers need on how to be equipped before they go, on how to stay safe, on how to respond, and how to be effective. So we just launched this initiative. We're working with some of the largest disaster relief organizations in the world to make this a reality. They've supplied the subject matter expertise, and they are very happy to work with you to make this a reality. So in the exhibit hall, the Cornerstone Foundation team has a booth. They would love to connect with you to talk about how, in the case of a disaster near your office, your team could be equipped to help out in response to the disaster. So something we're really excited about, something we think could have a real impact, and something that shows that the innovation doesn't have to be limited to the platform. It's really about how you use the platform. And it's something that really we hope over the next couple of days you're able to see for yourselves. There are many, many ways to leverage the Cornerstone system to make your organization more effective, to deal with the skills divide, and to be prepared not just for the future, but for the reality right now. But I want to leave you with one last thing. because we did say Convergence this year is about navigating the future. So it is worth talking for a moment about what that future might bring. And so I want to give you a glimpse into the future. We've been working on something that we're really excited about. We haven't announced it until right now, but we started a group inside the company called Cornerstone Labs. This is true R&D. We're really working on the art of the possible. This is not stuff that's coming out next release or even in a couple of releases. These are things that are looking at bleeding edge technology to understand how do you leverage blockchain and chatbots and AI and augmented reality. How do you leverage the newest, latest technology to go to the next step, to take things to the next level? So what I want to leave you with today is something that I'm really excited about. This is a technology that you maybe never heard of, called data stories. So for those of you that are in management or manage managers, you know that one of the biggest challenges today with so much data is the number of reports you get. Right? You get lots and lots of reports about everything. There are dashboards for every single aspect of your business, and it's a lot of times difficult to understand what to look at, what matters, what's relevant. Now, this is further complicated by the fact that these organizations are rapidly changing. You have lots of different responsibilities, and your teams keep growing and changing, and so it's hard to know everything about all your people. And this is particularly true the bigger the organization is or the more senior you get in the organization, right? The bigger your organization is, the harder it is to keep track of everything going on. And despite the fact that you probably already got a report on it, or maybe 5 different reports on it, it got lost in your 200 reports you've received and can't keep track of it. So we need these things surfaced for us. We need the information not just visualized, not just predicted, but also presented in a consumable way, in a way that we might better understand it. So this technology is called data storage. So I'm going to take out my phone and imagine if today you got an email like this that said, oh, hey, Adam, here's your executive summary for the month. Now, I want to preface this with the fact that this is actual technology, and this is not just a recording. You'll tell based on the voice, it's text to speech, and as you saw from that earlier video, the voice is getting better and better. So imagine the voice here will be much better by the time this is actually released. But I wanted to give you an example of the art of the possible presented to you by Cornerstone Labs. Here it is.
Good morning, Adam. I have 4 observations to share. Let's begin with Ben Cruz, whose team is experiencing a decline in engagement and satisfaction. Employee satisfaction dropped 27 points and employee engagement dropped 21 points this past month. Both employee satisfaction and employee engagement have hit their all-time lowest scores. Average employee satisfaction since last October has dropped 42%. And for the same period, average employee engagement dropped 39%. Visit the Engage dashboard to learn more. Next, Ginny Han has a succession alert. Albert Rich is in the critical VP Brandon Buzz position with a high probability of loss. And Jackie Summers, the sole successor for the position, left the organization on the 23rd of May. Next up, Mark Golden has an increasing average retention for his team. Looking over the past 3 years, employee retention in technology has risen compared to the rest of the organization. Currently, retention rates for high performers is greater than low performers. Lastly, Monique Bellamy has a quarterly sales goal to sell $3 million by Q2 for United States Pacific Division. The goal deadline is June 30th and first 15% of the sales target has been met. Additionally, 74 associates have linked goals with 67% meeting the quarterly target. Thank you for watching.
Now, really, I wanted to drop the mic and walk off the stage, but they didn't give me a mic, so I can't do it. But I got the response I needed because I just saw Josh Burson and David Wilson with big smiles. So I know this stuff doesn't really exist anywhere. That is possible. That's taking all the disparate data that exists across all of these different aspects of managing people and give it to you in a digest format that you would actually watch and gives you real actionable information. That's why we're doing this. We really are here to help you realize your potential. And what do I mean by that? I mean your organization, your team, but also you as an individual. And that's what we hope you get out of the next couple of days. This event is not about us. This event is about you. We want to make sure that you have the chance to network, that you have the chance to learn, that you have the chance to come away with something that's going to make you more effective and make your people more effective and help you be more competitive in this increasingly competitive landscape. Because the future is not tomorrow. The future is now. Thank you very much.